had quite a week last week. As you know, it started with a very successful Seva Saturday on the 14th. A good number of people came, a tremendous amount of work got done, and I thank each and every one of those people and encourage you all to participate in our Seva Saturdays. It's a very gratifying thing to do, and it helps the center in ways that I can't really take time to explain now, but believe me, it does. So, Seva Saturday. Then last Sunday, we had our annual meeting of the congregation. If you didn't get a chance to attend, either online or in person, it is on our YouTube channel, and you can view the recording. For those of you who are regular members of the congregation and didn't get a chance to attend, I recommend you do watch it, because it was a very good summary of what this place is and does. So then on Monday evening, Swami Sarvadevananda came. And that was some 4 days, I'll tell you, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and he left on Thursday morning. So many people came and visited with him, got his darshan and his wisdom, and 9 people were initiated on Wednesday morning. It was a very gratifying visit indeed. And the Swami is just the embodiment of wisdom and sweetness, just what is needed. So, thank you. And of course, his talk that was given on Tuesday evening is also on our YouTube channel. So please take advantage of the YouTube channel, take advantage of the website in general, and our Facebook page as well. And if you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, I strongly recommend that you make that effort. It's easy to sign up, and you will be informed every week of what's going on. For example, in this last week's newsletter, there was a notice of our annual Memorial Day retreat on Monday, May 30th. Your center will again participate in a day-long reading of Swami Vivekananda's complete works. Swami Sarvadevananda has sent reading assignments. Each assignment is for about 20 pages. If you would like to participate in this remarkable annual event, send me an email and I will return your email with your reading assignment. That takes place on Monday, May 30th. Get back to me as soon as you can. So that, are there any other announcements I should have made that I did not make? All right, we'll start with our opening chant. May the divine being
look over us lovingly as a mother and father.
May the divine being
support and nourish us as a mother and father.
May we have the strength and skill
to study together the art of spirituality.
may
no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Peace, peace be unto us, to all beloved beings everywhere.
Now, this is a month for the study of Jnana Yoga or Advaita. As Steve Martin remarked, one of the sad things about the atheists, and Advaitins are often atheists in the sense of the personal God, is that they have no songs. Well, Peter Ustinov may have proved them wrong. One evening at Carnegie Hall in New York, the house lights dimmed, the stage lights came out, and Peter Ustinov came out holding a balalaika, and he began to play and sing. And this is what he sang. Nichevo, 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 nichevo. At which point, some people in the audience began to get the joke and laughed. And so he stopped and he said, which proves that my people, by which of course he meant the Russian people, can make a song out of nothing, which of course is what Nichevo means in Russian. Now, we'll see what John Dobson has to say about this idea of nothing and getting a universe out of nothing. If you saw the newsletter posting about this, Cindy recreated John's button that he would hand out to people, which read, and does read on the beautiful recreation that Cindy did, nothing doesn't exist. So, nothing doesn't exist. May is a month for the study of Jnana Yoga, Advaita Vedanta. As a jnani, you practice discrimination, reason, detachment, and satyagraha, which means insistence on truth with a capital T. The goal is freedom from limitation. Our teachers say that all miseries in life are caused by seeing inaccurately. An earnest and persistent jnani may break through this misapprehension called Maya and see the divine presence everywhere, in everything, and everyone. That's just a brief definition of Advaita Vedanta, Jnana Yoga. This morning we're going to talk about the equations of Maya according to John Dobson. John Dobson earned a master's in chemistry from UC Berkeley in 1943. He went on to become an astronomer, a student of human history, and Vedanta philosopher. He spent the last years of his life living at Swami Swahananda's invitation at the Vedanta Society of Southern California Monastery. Dobson wrote, quote, modern cosmologists usually take non-existence for granted and hope to get the universe out of nothing. But must we assume that in the absence of the universe and in the absence of space and time, there would be nothing? Or can we, without so rash an assumption, find clues to what might remain instead if we take existence for granted, but leave out space and time? Could what remains through apparition or Maya appear as this universe? Can we, from what remains, get a universe out of gravity? Get a universe out of gravity, electricity, and inertia? Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain things simply, you don't understand them well enough. Dobson was a master of explaining Advaita Vedanta simply. This morning, we will read and discuss excerpts from his detailed, very clear descriptions of how Brahman appears to us as this universe. Swami Vivekananda said, there cannot be two existences, only one. John Dobson wrote the Equations of Maya to be offered as a talk at the 100th anniversary of the 1893 Parliament of Religions. That parliament in 1893 was the first gathering of clergy from around the world. The event at which Vivekananda so eloquently proclaimed that all religions are true and that the proof of one is proof of all. And by the way, I said we'd be discussing excerpts. If you like what you hear this morning and want more, we will post the PDF of the entirety of the Equations of Maya, which was about a 2-hour-long talk at that, including the Q&A, at that 1893 Parliament of that 1993. In 1993, John Dobson said, can we, by now, also square science with religion? In particular, can we square relativity and quantum mechanics with Swami Vivekananda's Advaita Vedanta? Since there cannot be two worlds, one for the scientists and one for the mystics, it must be that their descriptions of the same, that their descriptions are of the same world, but from different points of view. Can we, from the vantage point of the Swami's Advaita, non-dualism, see both points of view? Swami Vivekananda said that science and religion would meet and shake hands. Can we see things from this vantage point? Quote from John Dobson, since the notion of Maya or apparition is the first cause of our physics, since the notion of Maya or apparition as the first cause of our physics is central to the Swami's Advaita, I have chosen my subject, the Equations of Maya. Can we find them in our physics according to the philosophy of the Advaita Vedantans? As the Swami himself has said, there cannot be two existences, only one. And Maya is, as it were, a veil or screen through which that oneness, the absolute, is seen as this universe of plurality and change. First, we have to know what equations are. Second, we have to know what Vedantans mean by Maya. And finally, we have to take a hard look at our physics to see if any of our equations can be taken as descriptions of Maya. So as we do, before we move on, is there anything that has been said that calls forth from you a comment, a concern, or a question?
I'll comment.
Yes?
So that this was just touched on briefly, but the statement that all religions are true. When I first read Gospel of Ramakrishna and I was exposed to that idea, I just thought it was wonderful. It was wonderfully liberating to me. Now I really question it. I would say that there's a seed of truth in all religions, but there's also a lot of stuff that's just not true. Like two of the world's major religions, major numbers in Islam and Christianity believe that anybody that's not a Muslim or a Christian is going to hell, and that's just not true. So I would change that to say that within all religions there is a seed of truth.
Good. And I applaud your certainty that there is no hell.
If there is, it's, well, they couldn't both be right, because Muslims say all the Christians are going to hell, and the Christians say all the Muslims are going to hell.
Aren't human beings wonderful in their ability to create diversity out of unity? Yes, indeed. Swami Vivekananda said the test of the truth of religions is, does it produce saints? All of the world's major world traditions, all of the major world religious traditions have produced saints. So that seed of truth becomes a mystical point of view and generates that impulse that results in sainthood. So that's what Swami Vivekananda meant. Dobson was just summarizing what was quite an eloquent speech at that Parliament of World Religions. Thank you, Tom. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Here, Maya is described as the veil of the screen from which the universe is projected.
No, it is the veil or screen through which we see the universe.
Okay.
Maya, it isn't that it's projected by the veil. It is time, space, and causation, as we hear, are the veil through which we see. And when we see through that veil, we see the universe.
The reason for my confusion was when they used that movie analogy to explain, the Brahman, where screen is not moving and everything else is on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of confused me a little bit.
Well, there are many, many metaphors. This is one of the difficulties about trying to communicate these incommunicable ideas in the somewhat clumsy language that we have. And this is one of the things that Dobson looks at here. He doesn't specifically mention it, but mathematics is an attempt by those people who want to be more precise in their language, to invent a language, the language of mathematics, that has the capacity for that precision. Whereas even Sanskrit, as complicated and as definitive as it is still the truth escapes its net. It only can gesture. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, sir.
Brother Shankara,
Yes?
comment on Dawn's comment. Somewhere I heard or someone said the hell and heaven are myth. It does not exist.
Well, Swami Vivekananda said, yes, they are part of the mythology of our human experience. It doesn't mean they don't exist. It means that they are a lower reality. That all these ideas that are part of our mythology. Swami Vivekananda said, we do not move from error to truth. We move, if you will, from lower truth to higher truth. So this mythology, which includes the ideas of heaven and hell, and all these spheres, planes of existence, doesn't mean they don't exist. It's just a lower reality than the absolute reality.
Another comment.
Yes,
I am trying to interpret as a scientist myself, John Thompson's explanation of law, Brahman. So Einstein said and proved E equal to mc squared.
yes,
Energy, in other words, matter is energy. M is mass, C is velocity of light,
yes.
E is energy. So the matter, when converted to
But they are the
velocity
same
squared.
thing in two forms.
Yes. So here I will interpret that the Maya is all Brahman.
This is exactly what Sri Ramakrishna
Space
said.
and time, you know,
This is exactly what Sri Ramakrishna said. That Maya, or Prakriti, or Shakti, or Kali, is indeed Brahman. He said, water still, Brahman the absolute, and water in waves, Maya, same water.
so that proves Johnson's theory that nothing is one.
Well, John Dobson says, nothing doesn't exist.
True.
So that there must be something. There must be something. And that's what he's going to describe. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Sabah. Yes, please.
Can you give one example where time, space, and causation don't exist? Not Brahman, any other thing,
I'm
which is
sorry.
beyond time, space, and causation.
Well, the absolute is beyond time.
But we can't visualize that. So
It's
anything
not a
that-
question of visualizing, it's a question of experience. And of course we cannot realize, we can't visualize. We have no way with our apparatus, our antakaran, to grasp reality with a capital. And Swami Prabhupada remarked, all attempts to grasp reality with the mind are like trying to empty the ocean of consciousness with a teaspoon.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. All attempts to grasp reality with the mind are like trying to empty the ocean of consciousness with a teaspoon. Yes, dear.
I would like to address the stream I'm getting in the chat. People are complaining, rightly so, that they can't hear well when the AC is on, which is why I just turned it down. I just want everyone to know that we know that we need to have better mic placement, but we don't even have a mic today. We're doing the best we can today, but we know that there's a problem with the AC fan now that we're back in the chapel and Zooming. So just bear with us today, please. And that's all I want to say about that.
I know it's very hard to hear the questioners. And I'm doing the best I can to project. My voice is a little, I don't know how to say it, just a little rough, a little thin today.
Well, we're going to mic the speaker. That's what we're working on doing. It's just the things that we need to do it didn't all show up today. So yeah, we're working on it, and possibly even in this room, putting it through the speakers as well. So,
Okay,
but I also had a comment about
yes.
what we're talking about. I can't get this out of my mind for some reason. Ever since I got up today, I kept thinking about that thing that little kids play. It's a drawing game called Connect the Dots. Connect the dots. And you have all these dots on a piece of paper, and you draw a line from dot to dot, and ideally it ends up making a picture of something, an elephant, whatever. And I keep thinking how that's kind of what we see, how we see, you know, and it's like we're taught by whatever culture we're in and our influences to connect those dots in a certain way. And then we go, I see it. That's an elephant. Well, it's not an elephant. But we think it's an elephant. We go through our lives thinking it's an elephant because we connected those dots. But let's say you're on the other side looking through that transparent paper at those dots, you're going to see something entirely different.
Well, that's why Don Juan Matus said that what we inherit as we grow up is our membership. And when we are able to see the elephant in the dots, as Cindy put it, then our membership is full. And then he says, but you must go beyond that. You must discard the limitations of your membership, which is exactly what John Dobson is going to talk about as we go on this morning. How to discard the limitations of time, space, and causation, and be more present to what is behind that thing. So anything else? Yes or no?
Yeah.
The thing to remember, dears, is I can't see. Okay. So don't just wave your hand, please. Just sing out.
Yeah, brother, you were mentioning like there is only one, there is nothing secondary, like the world is only one thing.
There's one existence.
Yeah, one existence. So if I was just having a thought, like if you are just going to think in that, like we might become like a little bit lethargy, like okay, there is only one, so what am I to do in this? Okay, something is happening, even though I don't feel that way, but it's all one.
So Sri Ramakrishna said, I spit on that Vedanta.
Yeah.
We must, as long as we have the I consciousness, as long as we feel that we are the doer, we cannot take that attitude that you just said. It's all one, so I don't have to do it.
Yeah, but
I don't have to be bothered.
Yeah, but consequently, you are also mentioning to one of the questions, like you need to experience that oneness. Say, like we can think in that way, like there is only one, but if you want to really, it's not in theory, but if you want to experience that, so then that becomes like you need to work on that more. So
yes, well, and I spoke clumsily. It's not experience. Experience implies an experiencer and an experience. As understood from those who have testified to it from their realization, which is the proper word, their realization of the unity. Because they say that when in this state of realization, there is no realizer, there is no mind, there is no experience. So thank you for bringing that up and allowing me to clarify. It is not a matter of experience. The lower forms of ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy, or samadhi, are a matter of experience. And that is not in any way to take anything away from them. But they are not that highest, which is practically unknown among human beings. I mean, it's not something that you can, according to Patanjali, it's not even anything you can aspire to. You can aspire to the lower forms of understanding and spiritual experience. But he says this other is something that happens. So, yeah, please, I think I saw a hand. If you're gonna say something, just say it.
So does it also mean that people who
Is there someone behind you? No, but I see, this is why I say can't see. So, what's in there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so does it also mean that people who follow the path of dualism, so they also realize that there is two things, or like the sages or whoever has followed that path?
Anyone who follows the dualistic path, which we characterize, generally speaking, as bhakti, or the path of devotion, sees all these things, sees them as I am seeing these things, but comes to, through their practice, see them as all the divine presence, themselves and everything else as the divine presence. So they ultimately come to this unity, this sense of unity. The diversity becomes one through this devotion, where one actually sees, as Yajnavalkya says in the Brihadranya Upanishad, he says you actually see the self in everything. And if you want to read a wonderful book about that, read Swami Shraddhananda's book, Seeing God Everywhere, which is a great meditation on dualism becoming unity.
Thank you, brother.
I'll make a comment on the thing that I brought up originally, is that your comment. I really relate to the idea that all religions create saints. That's true. And that's what it's really about, as far as I'm concerned. That's what really matters.
Yes.
So, although I don't agree with just the statement all religions are true, because I think there's untrue myths in all of them, I do agree, and it really touches me. It's really useful to think that all religions create saints. And that's the way I'll think of it from now on.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, that's why Vivekananda said that, I'm sure, so that we would get that clarity. Yes, dear.
But might there not be saints that are created, so to speak, in the world outside of religion altogether?
Of course. The Baal Shem Tov became a saint before he was introduced to the religion of Judaism. He became a saint by being an orphaned child that spent most of his life alone in nature, in the woods. And he simply assimilated the truth behind that. He became a saint. And so his uncle saw that he had become saintly as a teenager, and so took him to a great Russian spiritual master. At the time, the Jews had to be very, very circumspect. This was in, I think, the 15th century, I'm not sure, no, 18th century, maybe? I don't remember. But in any event, whenever the Baal Shem Tov lived, there were many pogroms, many persecutions of the Jews. And so they had to be careful. But the Baal Shem Tov had become a saint without any instruction whatsoever from the lineage. And then was given the framework of of the Jewish mystical tradition. And then he became what he became.
Brother, how can this be a measure, like all true religions create saints? How can that be a measure to say that a religion is really true? Say like people who have certain ideology which evolved in the early 18th century or 19th century, that still follows. So people still follow some ideology based on like whatever existing at that time. So how can we take that as a measure and say a religion which creates saints or things like that is a true religion?
I quoted Vivekananda. Vivekananda said the measure of the truth of a religion is whether it creates saints. And he observed that all of the great world traditions had created saints. So there is something, as Tom said, there is some seed that if planted within them and watered by their attention becomes realization. So it becomes the experience of the divine. So that's the test of it. We're not going to get very far ahead with Mr. Dobson here if we continue this discussion.
I'd like to make one other brief comment.
Yes.
Concerning what you just said. Why do we have to limit this to 1 hour when it really takes off and we're having an interesting discussion? It's Sunday, nobody needs to go anywhere. Why not?
Oh, really?
Or we can continue.
Nice work if you can get it, Tom.
That may be true of some of us, but and certainly I am not desirous of limiting it to an hour, but yes.
Well, that's what we have the continuing fellowship and snacks following this for. I mean, that's what it's for.
But also, couldn't it go into become next Sunday's talk? possibly?
Because we already have that, yeah.
What? Sure. I mean, let us not be dogmatic about anything that we don't need to be dogmatic, which is very little indeed. So anything else from you? All right. John Dobson continues, what are equations? They are a kind of mathematical shorthand. They are just brief statements, usually in symbolic form, like 2 plus 2 equals 4. The 2 plus 2 on the one side is one part of the equation. The equals sign says equation, it equals 4. So 2 plus 2 on the one side, 4 on the other, equals sign in the middle, that's an equation. If you put that in English, it reads 2 plus 2 equals 4. Essentially, there are 2 kinds of equations, mathematical equations like the one just mentioned, and the equations of our physics. But mathematics is not about anything. 2 oranges plus 2 oranges equals 4 oranges is about oranges, but 2 plus 2 equals 4 is not about anything. Now, physics is about something. It is about how matter behaves. So the equations of physics are about the behavior of matter, and that's what concerns us. Newton's famous equation, F equals ma, put into words, means that the force required to accelerate an object is proportional to the product of the mass of that object and the rate of change of its velocity. This means that when you're pushing a car to speed it up, how hard you have to push depends on how heavy the car is and how fast you have to speed it up. And that is And that is combined in that little statement, F equals ma. It's just a kind of shorthand, and it's not scary. What is Maya? We talked a little about equations. Now we have to talk about Maya. What do the Vedantans mean by Maya? First, we know from the Upanishads that that it is made of three gunas: tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamas is its veiling power. Rajas is its projecting power, and sattva its revealing power. What is he talking about? Maya. Maya has these three powers: veiling power, tamas; projecting power, rajas; and sattva, revealing power. Now, this language, veiling and revealing, is the language of perception, not the language of manufacture. You can't make anything out of a guna, as the Sankhya's wanted to do. These three gunas, of which Maya is said to be made, are just three aspects of a misperception. They are not substances like wood, stone, or gold, out of which objects could be made. They are simply three aspects of an apparition. In order to take a rope for a snake, you must first see the rope. In order to mistake a rope for a snake, you must fail to see the rope rightly. That's the veiling power of tamas. Then you must jump to the wrong conclusion. That is the projecting power of rajas. You yourself project the snake, but the length and diameter of the rope are seen as the length and diameter of the snake. That's the revealing power of sattva. But many of the Vedantans, when they write about the veiling and projecting powers of Maya, leave the revealing power out. Just look in the books. You'll find they leave it out. But you cannot leave it out, or the theory would be lame and the universe wouldn't run. So we see from the Upanishads that Maya is made of three gunas, that it is a misperception, a kind of magic, and that the universe is therefore apparitional, like the snake for which the rope has been mistaken. But why does the apparition take the form of this universe? Why do we see the physics that we see? Partly it is the gunas, and partly it is space and time. Swami Vivekananda said in one of his lectures that the universe is the absolute. The universe is the absolute seen through the screen of time, space, and causation. He said that time, space, and causation are like the glass in which the absolute is seen, and when it is seen on the lower side, it appears as the universe. So not only is the universe apparitional, it is the absolute seen through time and space, and that allows us to understand why the physics of the universe takes the form that we see. Now, Swami Vivekananda's statement that the universe is the absolute seen through the screen of time, space, and causation allows us to get some interesting information, albeit in negative terms, about what he calls the absolute. Since it is not in time, it cannot be changing. change takes place only in time. And since it is not in space, it must be undivided, because dividedness and separation can occur only in space. And since it is therefore one and undivided, it must also be infinite, since there is no other to limit it. Now let's pause there and see if there's any comment or question about what's been said, because we need to have this firmly in mind if we're going to move on, that the absolute cannot be changing, because change only takes place in time, so it must be changeable. It cannot be, it must be infinite, because it is not changing, and it is eternal. So, any comments or questions about that?
Shankara,
Yes,
excuse me, could you please read that all again that Dobson said?
oh,
It'll be in the notes, won't it?
it'll be in the notes if you need it, but these are negative terms. They're not positive statements, because you can't make any positive statements about the absolute. It is beyond definition. So if it is not in time, it cannot be changing. Change takes place only in time. And since it is not in space, it must be undivided, because dividedness and separation only occur in space. And since it is therefore one and undivided, it must be infinite, since there is no other to limit it. That's what the Swami said.
Oh,
Now,
that's what Swami said?
that's what Swami really promised.
Okay.
Now, changeless, infinite, and undivided are negative statements, but they will suffice. We can trace the physics of our universe from these three negative statements. If we don't see the absolute as what it is, we see it as something else. If we don't see it as changeless, infinite, and undivided, we see it as changing, finite, and divided, since, in this case, there is no other else. There is no other way to mistake the changeless except as changing. So we see a universe which is changing all the time, made of minuscule particles and divided into atoms. But because of the revealing power, the changelessness, the infinitude, and the undividedness show through. The changeless shows through in us as our yearning for peace and security. Now, please listen very carefully, because everything else after this flows from what is about to be said. So the characteristics, these negative aspects show through. The changeless shows through in us as our yearning for peace and security. And it shows in what we see as matter, as mass or inertia. The infinite shows in us as our yearning for freedom. And it shows in what we see in matter, as the electrical charge or the minuscule particles. And the undivided shows in us as love, and shows in what we see in matter as gravity and the attraction between opposites like positive and negative electrical charges. The universe is wound up against gravity only because the dividedness shows through. And it is wound up against electricity only because the infinitude shows through. Gravity, electricity, and inertia are simply the nature of the underlying existence showing through, just as the length and diameter of the rope show through as the snake for which it has been mistaken. What we see as energy is simply the underlying existence showing through. Everything that happens because of that. Any comments, concerns, or questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
This is Gautam I'm visiting from Seattle,
yes, dear.
and it seems to me we are kind of going through a lot of things, but if I go back to your comments about the veiling, projecting, and the revealing,
Yes.
are you saying that each time there's a new observation of truth or object or matter, do we have to go through the three processes? Or from previous experience, I can bypass the veiling, projecting, and then directly go to the revealing part?
The short answer is yes.
Yeah.
And so your question is?
So my question is that a lot of times, I think if we can have the ability to go to the revealing stage directly, then it's better off for me to realize everything you're telling, right?
That is, yes, yes. And that is the purpose of spiritual practice. What this talk today gives us spiritual practice as taught in this lineage is in three phases: contemplation, concentration, and meditation. This gives us information to contemplate, manana. How am I mistaking what I'm seeing for something that is separate, divided, apart, rather than seeing the unity? How is it that I'm doing it? So John Dobson is giving us this. And he's also arguing that it is quite natural what we do. As you'll see as his argument develops here, that it is our genetic programming that causes us to do this. And so when we go beyond contemplation of the truth to concentration on some particular aspect of the truth, or on some aspect of the divine that has been given to us as as something to concentrate on, then our senses become clarified. We see what is self-evident. And so we see the divinity first within ourselves. We learn to feel the living presence within ourselves because we have sunk below the level of cogitation, of mental activity, into the silence of concentration. And then from that develops the ability to hold that concentration long enough were to be defined as meditation. And that's when the magic really begins.
I have another question.
Yes?
Is there any subtle difference between mistaking a rope for a snake, but if I mistake a snake for a rope?
Wow.
Good
Uh, Well, there's a gross difference. The rope isn't gonna bite you. If you mistake a snake for a rope, you're in some danger. Perhaps if it's a snake that bites.
Yeah, but if I'm a snake catcher, I should not mistake a snake for a rope.
But yeah, well, that's a straw man argument, sir. Yeah, you have to agree, that's a straw man argument.
What did he
We're
say?
not,
What did he
we're
say, sir?
If I have to, if I'm after a snake, if I'm a snake catcher,
Oh.
all day long, I should not be mistaking snakes for rope.
you're right, and that's a very
So it
humorous.
depends on the purpose then.
Well, now we've gone off in another direction entirely.
Yeah, we are.
Purpose.
Let's not go there.
So that our purpose is, as we'll see, Dobson gets to the goal. What is the goal? What is the purpose? And yes, of course, if you're a snake catcher, you must not mistake a snake for a rope.
So if you're a god catcher.
Yes,
Well,
very good. Now, it is almost noon. So I am going to continue this next week. Rather than try and, because we're not even halfway through the number of pages that are here.
Good.
But let's at least take up John's meditation on causation. It's his next subhead here. So we have seen from the Upanishads that Maya is made of the three gunas. The Sankhya call it Prakriti, the first cause, and we have seen that the first cause must be apparitional. As Swami Vivekananda said, the universe is the absolute seen through the screen of time, space, and causation. Here I need to say a few words about causation, because what we ordinarily see as causation is not apparitional, it is transformation. So the two terms are apparitional, seeing something mistaken, and we see, what we usually see, he says, causation as transformation, one thing changing to another. Chevrolets do not arise by apparition, they come from a factor. Although we have seen, as we have seen, the first cause of our physics is apparitional. It leaves us with a universe wound up with energy, and the transformations run on their own accord. So I read that very clearly. It leaves us with a universe wound up with energy, and the transformations run on their own accord. In other words, the energy transforming into its various aspects. Gravity arises by apparition, but falling is transformation. The gravitational energy is transformed into kinetic energy without any change in the amount. So the force of gravity, the deformation of space-time as Einstein defined gravity, The deformation of space-time has a certain amount of energy. When something responds to that energy by falling, that's a transformation, a change from one place to another. But there's no change in the amount of energy. As you may know, philosophical systems in India are cataloged according to their understanding of causation. The Sankhya's were Paramavad Vedantans. They believed in, I'm not pronouncing that right, they believed in transformational causation, like making milk into buttermilk. Milk is transformed into buttermilk. The Advaita Vedantans are, I'm sorry, my vision just doesn't let me read that. They believe the universe is caused by apparition, like mistaking a rope for a snake. Now, these are very different things. When milk is transformed into buttermilk, it is a change that takes place in time. It is happening, and there is a shelf life for our buttermilk. There's a date on it. But mistaking a rope for a snake is not happening in that sense. It is not that you mistook the rope for a snake yesterday, and there's a snake in your kitchen, and you don't dare open the door. It's a mistake you are making now. It's something you are doing now. The question is, why do we see that way? Why do we feel that we are bound? Why do we continue to make the mistake? Why are we unable to see through the apparition? And that can be answered. On December 14, 1882, Vijay Krishna Goswami asked Sri Ramakrishna this question: Sir, why are we bound like this? Why don't we see God? And Sri Ramakrishna answered, Maya is nothing but the egotism of the embodied soul. This egotism has covered everything like a veil. All troubles come to an end when the ego dies. It's by the grace of God. If by the grace of God, man but once realizes that he is not the doer, that he has, then he becomes a jivan mukta. Though living in the body, he is liberated. He has nothing to fear. So that's where we'll take it up next week. I'll repeat this business on causation, and I'll put it in a bigger typeface so I can read it better. But before we go away, is there anything about these two different forms of causation? Transformation. A bunch of parts come into a factory, they're transformed into a Chevrolet. That's what the song says. Butter becomes buttermilk. But apparitional causation, the one that he says we are bound by, comes from making a mistake, from seeing inaccurately. And so he asked, Vijay Goswami asked, Vijay Krishna Goswami asked, why do we do this? And Sri Ramakrishna answered, egotism. Egotism is the sense that we are the doer. That's how he defines it. So the way Krishna defines it in the details. So we'll start with that idea, these two different kinds of causation and what the effects are next week, when we'll discuss again causation and then what is egotism. And John Dobson has a very interesting answer, that it is our genetic program.
Shankaraji,
Yes,
why
Bob?
did Dobson thinks the gravitation is Maya? That's what he's saying, right? Gravitation is apparitional, whereas the fall is an energy.
Well, it's all part of the apparition. Gravitation is the absolute showing through as attraction.
Yeah, but that is true, but it's the nature of the earth that is giving that, the gravitational force.
No,
But as
it's
far-
not, it's not the earth. It's not the earth. The earth is not causing the gravitation. It is the deformation of space-time, as Einstein said, that causes the gravitation. The mass of the earth is part of that equation, but it is not causal. It's part of that deformation of space-time.
Then why we don't have the gravitation now if you go beyond the atmosphere and all that stuff?
Oh, you have gravitation. If you go beyond the atmosphere, you have to go
Oh, yeah.
17,600 miles per hour.
Einstein says all matter, all planets, that everything attracts each other. The force of attraction is proportional to their mass and the distance. All right? So I think it's square of a distance. So that's also
No,
Einstein.
but that is true. If that is the case, how can it be apparitional? You see, apparitional is something deluded, is a Maya, which is not there.
It's not that it's not there.
I mean,
It's not that it's not there. It is a lower truth. Not that it is not there. The fact that the apparition is like magic. It isn't that the magic isn't there. It's simply we don't see how it's done. And this is why spiritual practices clarify the senses. And so we see what is self-evident. As Scrooge says, the morning after his awakening, he says to his clerk, "Oh, Bob, I have not taken leave of my senses. I have come to them." And so he sees clearly what is self-evident.
the
It
other
isn't that the apparition is not there. There is a rope. We mistake it for a snake. And the length and diameter of the rope we see as the length and diameter of the snake. But something is there. The absolute is there.
yes, absolute is there, yes, but because we are deluded, we are seeing instead of the rope, a snake.
What we're seeing products of
Of
Prakriti.
the Maya.
We're seeing the products of the three gunas. The veiling, projecting, and revealing power. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing it right this minute.
The other thing also, he said, the gravity, the consciousness is showing us. Is that what, that's, I think something to that effect he said, it is the divinity is showing up when he's talking about the gravity.
Well, he says that the absolute shows through as inertia, as electricity, and as gravity. These are the true names, so to speak, from the perspective that Dobson speaking, of the three Buddhas. They are the names in physics that allows us to understand them, which is why I say the true names as far as we're concerned. As Swami Prabhupada remarked, the word Buddha itself, let alone the three names of the Buddhas, are untranslatable into English. So Dobson is coming as close as he can by saying inertia, electricity, and gravity. And he also says it's not just electricity, it's the infinitude shows through in the smallness of, and I mean, when we talk about small, the subatomic particles are so small and their existence is so brief. Any one particle's existence is so brief that it's beyond our ability to conceive it. It can be measured, but it's, I mean, how can we conceive of trillionths of a second? We can't conceive.
Question.
Yes,
Who
dear.
was this John Dobson?
John Dobson.
Who was he?
Well, as I said in the introduction,
I didn't know it, sorry.
well, he was the child of missionaries in China. He spoke fluent Mandarin. He returned to the United States. His family returned to the United States in his teens. This was in the 1930s. In 1943, he got a master's in chemistry from the University of California at Berkeley. He went on to become a Vedanta monk in the San Francisco and Sacramento monasteries. When he developed a very strong interest in astronomy, it caused him to leave the monastery because the head of the monastery wasn't willing to tolerate his intense interest in astronomy. So he became an astronomer and founder of the Sidewalk Astronomers, which you can find online. He then became an astrophysicist using the mathematics that he gained through his study of chemistry. He studied astrophysics. I don't think he ever took any degree in it. I'm pretty sure he didn't. But he became respected among astrophysicists, although very controversial, because he did not believe in either the Big Bang or Hubble's constant. So he became controversial, which is one of the reasons that he was chosen to deliver this lecture at the 100th anniversary celebration of the 1893 Parliament of World Religions, because the organizers knew that he would create a stir. They were looking for someone who would create a stir as we look at it.
But the Shankara?
He lived his life, the end of his life. By that I mean at least the last 10, probably more like the last 15 years of his life, by the invitation of Swami Vivekananda, Swami Swahananda, at the monastery of the Vedanta Society of Southern California. Yes,
But Shankara, I was thinking, under the influence of tamas and rajas, maybe we are mistaking the snake for the rope. So we go and grab, all these manifestations. Maybe some snakes are more poisonous, some less, but after being bitten enough number of times, then maybe we start looking for the rope.
Yes, that is true.
well said, dear. That's lovely. Yes, after being bitten enough times. We do feel the pinch of our bondage. That's why Sri Chaitanya in his prayer says, bathing in his name, that bath for weary soul. We get weary of this magic show. But it's very hard to let it go entirely. Being, creating, doing, sharing, the joys of these is why we're here. When you're truly tired of this, just sign off and head for home. But how many of us are truly tired of it? Or are we still enjoying the magic? As Swami Prabhupada said, everyone loves the magic, but no one wants to know the magician. So, all of these spiritual practices, all of the 4 yogas as taught by Vivekananda, are our workbooks for dispelling the ignorance associated with seeing the magic and coming to know the living presence within us, the witness, the magician. The greatest mistake, as Vivekananda says, is that we make, is that someone is doing this to us. No. We are doing this to ourselves. We like this, and so we continue to do it. Although it's clear that there is a yearning. Otherwise, why would you spend your time in this way on a Sunday morning, now Sunday afternoon? Why would you spend your time this way rather than some other way? There's golf to play. There's TV to watch. There's hikes to take. There's fishing to do.
Yard work.
There's yard work to do, yes. Some people really enjoy it. I think Cindy was speaking for herself.
What
So-
is that, Cindy, you said?
Yard work. Yard work.
Oh, yard work, okay.
So, yes, there are many ways you could spend your time. But you're here. So that means that the ache is there. The yearning for freedom is there. Much to be celebrated. Much to be celebrated. So anything else from anyone from your side?
Question.
Yes.
Okay, so there's gravity, inertia, and electricity. Gravity is an expression of the physical world of love. What was inertia and electricity? Or I can look it up if it doesn't come to you.
It isn't immediately coming.
It doesn't matter. I can look it up if the article's online.
Well, this whole thing will be online, yes, the whole talk. This is only about a third of it that I've excerpted. Inertia, Thomas shows through in not only being the fulcrum for a lever, but it shows up in human beings as obstinacy, a kind of dullness. I don't think Dobson mentions these here as definitions, but it is the traditional definition of tamas, as I said, as it manifests in human beings, a kind of dullness, a kind of stupidity, obstinacy. Projecting power, rajas, shows up in us as action, the urge to action, particularly toward those things that are associated with acquisition, power. And our frustration at not getting what we want shows up as rajasic, anger, rage. Lust, worldly lust, and rage are the two things associated with rajas.
Okay, so it comes across as tamas is inertia, rajas is electricity, and love is, or sattva is gravity.
Yes.
Okay. One other brief comment. For anybody that's interested in John Dobson, there's a really good in-depth biography on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it was written by the Sidewalk Astronomers. On his 80th birthday, at the Science Museum in Griffith Park, Los Angeles, scientists and students of science and others, astronomers, gathered from around the world to celebrate his birthday. It was really quite remarkable. So anything else from anyone? All right, this is our closing chant. Please join me. Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. And with that, those of you who were so adventuresome as to come out and be with us in the chapel, now we'll have some snacks and other enjoyments in the monastery. And we'll just, whatever was going to be talked about next week will be deferred to another time when we're discussing Advaita, and we'll complete this talk next week, because we got just about halfway through.